Hey everybody. So in this video we are going to tackle the double envelope. Now a few months back we did a single envelope wallet and so many of you made it. It's been so cool seeing all your different versions. This is the double envelope, so where the single envelope is kind of a classic leatherworking design, this is something that we drew up and designed ourselves that's kind of a step further on that design, an evolution. And the pattern is going to be available at the first link, second link in the description. All the tools and materials are going to be at the first link. And in this video, we're going to walk you through making this piece because it's a little tricky to get the order of operations right. But as far as skill is concerned, if you can make the single envelope, you can absolutely make the double envelope. So we're going to use a chunk of Newbury Leather's Crazy Horse leather. It's one of the only leathers in the line we haven't used yet on video. And it's really nice. It's a more traditional oil tanned leather. Something you would probably use for bags and backpacks and that sort of thing. I want to try it with this pattern because it's a little bit softer, and I think with all the layers, it should make a really comfortable feeling wallet. I did go ahead and cut out all the pieces because you've seen me cut out pieces plenty of times. You need two of these pockets, one of the flap and one of the diamond that will be essentially make the envelope shape. The only skiving I would suggest doing if you're like me and you're using 4 to 5 ounce leather instead of like 3 to 4 ounce leather, I'm just going to skive along the bottom of these center pockets. If you're using 3 to 4 ounce, you don't need to skive anything. This will come out just fine. I actually have Melissa from Dad Hands tested this pattern for me, and I've been carrying this for like 2 or 3 months now, and this is what it looks like all broken in. And I have about 6 cards on the inside and my most used credit card on the outside. So it's a really nice wallet. Stays nice and compact, but has a lot of nice detail. She tooled this and aged this down for me because I like to collect vintage, and she made it look real nice. So this is what we're aiming for, but we're going to go in a more traditional Western with the Crazy Horse. So I'm going to set my dividers to right where this curve ends. It's going to be about 1/4 inch, I would assume, maybe a little over, 3/8. And that's where I'm going to skive. And we're just going to nip off. This is a pretty easy leather to skive because it's full of oils and waxes. And we're just going to skive that down. And then we're ready to start gluing up already, believe it or not. Oh, no, we're not. We got to do edges first. Right, so someone asked what would happen if we didn't bevel any of the edges. And it's just going to be kind of sharp and round over, but we're going to do that with this one. So I'm using Phoebing's Pro Dye. This is black. Because this is a chrome tan leather, we're going to burnish with toconol. And this marker is leaking right now, which is not the marker's fault, it's my fault because I just refilled it. So we might have some inadvertent faux patina on the front of this when we're done. But that's okay. Yeah, we've got a little bit, but we can oil it up and make it look cool. So with this design, you basically want to do all the edges. There are going to be edges you'll go back and touch up later. And I like to get, this is going to be covered, but I like to get that curve anyway, because you'll kind of see in there in the end. So here's what we got. No burnishing, or no beveling. It looks kind of cool. It's just, it mushrooms over a little bit, but all you got to do is, so you burnish like this, and then all I did was, I just kind of hit it on the side like this. And you get a nice crisp edge. So there's your answer. If you don't want to bevel, I suppose you don't have to. So I'm going to leave it like this. We did get a couple marks, but when you fold it, it kind of looks cool, like some black patina or whatever. So I'm just going to leave it because I like the look of it. So the next part we need to figure out is where we need to rough up our leather on our pockets to glue our, what is essentially our envelope portion. So it helps to have a gridded mat on this one. And what I'm going to do is, let me find my scratch all. I'm going to use this line. This is 4 inches wide, so I'm going to put that right on the line there. Then I'm just going to take my triangle piece here, and I'm going to make sure that that is on the line on both sides too. Then I'm just going to make a very rough line, kind of sticking my awl in a little bit so that I have maybe 1/8 of an inch. That's all we need. We just need a rough estimate, and we'll do that on the other side as well. And that's going to tell us, now if you're using veg tan, like a natural veg or a veg that's not heavily treated, you don't have to really rough up anything because the glue will stick, but with a leather like this that's chrome tanned and has dye, it's and oils in it, You're going to want to rough it up to get a good bond on any sort of glue you're using, which is why we're doing this step. And this is the big difference between the single envelope and the double envelope, which I'm not good at naming things. The double has 2 pockets, the single has 1. Now we're going to rough this up with our rougher. You don't need much. We don't need to totally break the grain or anything. We just want to make some grooves in there for that glue to get into and stick to. But I want to make sure that I don't go beyond these lines because we don't want any of this scratched up leather showing when our piece is done. And then we're just going to glue her up. What I do like to do on the envelope piece, I guess you could call it, is I'm going to just basically give myself a little guideline. You don't need rulers or anything. Give myself a little guideline and then give myself like maybe 1/8 to 1/4 inch on either side of it. We don't need to glue there. You can if you want, but there's really no reason to, because if you look at where this sticks, yeah, exactly right about there. So we want to omit glue from in here to make everything, you want the middle part as open as possible, because that's where you're going to be able to fit your bills and that kind of stuff. Any extra glue that's not broken out or that keeps kind of re-sticking itself for the first few months isn't going to be super fun. Okay, so you don't have to go too crazy with this. We're just going to go around the outside here. You can fill in the middle if you want, but you don't have to. And remember, keep your glue inside those lines. Now, I don't sew this top part. I find that the stitching on the sides does all it needs to do. But if you want to stitch across the top and the flap and everything, by all means go for it. These things look really nice when they're fully detailed, but they also look nice when you use thick enough leather that you just kind of sew the parts that need to be sewn, which is what I kind of like about this. The envelope style in general is meant to be efficient, you know? But I like this double one because you can kind of pick how detailed you want. You can go fully lined, French style, or you can go kind of more like this, like a more rustic, I don't want to say craft fair style, although I don't want to say that craft fair style is a bad thing. Less detailed, we'll just say that. Now that our glue's dry, when you have a chrome tan leather like this, it's a little thicker, don't be afraid to do a second coat. Do like a base coat of glue and a second coat if you're not getting the adhesion that you want. This should be good for this. I'm just going to kind of go by the guidelines we made and also the lines on our mat still. Stick that down. Now I'm not sure what color thread I want to go with, so I'm going to post a quick Instagram poll. I think in 6 years, 5 years on YouTube, I don't even put the link in the bio. I'm really bad at we're not great at self-promotion. But if you want to follow us on Instagram, we do all sorts of fun stuff on there. We've been making reels lately of smaller tips and tricks and stuff. But I'm going to take a picture of this real quick and see what color everyone thinks we should do, because I'm torn between going black and going yellow, doing kind of a classic construction leatherwork type look. So I'm going to post a picture and see what people say. So if you have any hairy kind of chrome tan leathers, you can just also use Tokonol to slick down the backs. You can use a wood slicker. I usually just massage it in with my hand, and I mostly just want the flap to be nice and slick because everything else is going to be, your cards will slide in and out. And so I'm just going to put a little bit in there and just burnish it up with my cloth. Alright, it was like 10 minutes, but you picked yellow thread. My choice as well, so we're going to go with yellow thread. Now it's time to start sewing it up. So I'm going to mark pretty much all of our stitch lines. We need to sew our interior stitch lines here. So we're going to mark 4 of those. I'm not going to mark all the way to the end. Leave like 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. Then I'm going to mark our side seams as well, because basically what I want to do is where I end here, I want to be the last stitch of this stitch line as well. There we go. Now you have a choice. I am going to use, we have 5mm and 3.85mm. I'm going to use 5mm. Normally I use 3.85mm, but the yellow Ritza is 0.8mm, so it's a little thicker. And I'm worried that it's going to look a little too chunky if the stitching's too close. I will say that my favorite stitching for this design is 3.85, but I don't want to risk it being just a little too frumpy looking. So we're going to go with the 5, and we're going to get to punching and stitching this interior. So I'm going to start down here, because what I want, you can mark out some stitches. Ideally, I want my stitches to land right there. See how that stitch lands one over? So we have one stitch overlapping and then one stitch going under. That's what we want. So then I can work my way up this side because it's kind of inconsequential where up here I land as long as it's not super close to the top, which it isn't. So that's basically all I want to do on the rest of these as well. I guess I'm just marking them. I'm not going all the way through. Just to make sure that all of my holes line up as nicely as they possibly can, so it looks all nice and neat. Now, if you split a little bit of a corner here, we can, when we go and punch, we'll just kind of push this up and punch. Now, this is not, obviously, I'm not a fine leather worker. I don't do French work or anything. With the thickness of thread we're using and with the spacing we're using, that's going to look just fine. There we go. So now we can start punching through. I'm only going to punch the diamond parts for now, because I want to glue together everything before we punch the side parts, so we're just punching all the way through. It's not thick enough to have to double punch or anything like that, especially with this leather. This leather is kind of dreamy to punch through. It's very oily and smooth and nice to work with. So, with the yellow sewn up, which good choice, with the black and the brown, it looks just killer. It's time to install our snaps. So, if you're going to see, you can stitch around this flap. I would suggest doing that before you do your snap installation. We have a pretty special snap that we're going to use on the front. And then we want to punch through both pieces of this. And this is what your inside's going to look like. You're going to have the skive down sides, ideally no glue in the middle. And I decided to end my back stitches on the bottom because then I can end my back stitches on the top up here for some extra support, and they kind of balance each other out. Our friend Chuck at Dissonance came up and actually visited us on Cape, and he had posted a picture of these. So he's like a leathersmith but also a metalsmith, so he makes tons of cool metal jewelry and stuff like that. And he'd posted this as sort of a trial, and I said, dude, can I have a few of these? So these are hand-engraved line 20 snaps. And this is going to be, I've been waiting for the perfect project. We have about a dozen of them. And I think this is just going to look totally killer on this piece. I do think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take some very, very light sandpaper. This is like 450 grit. And I'm just going to smooth it down a tiny little bit. There we go. And that's just kind of smooths it over a little bit. It didn't take away any of the engraving. It was just a little sharp for the thumb. So now I just have to go add my other line 20 piece on the back, and we'll be good to go to get this glued up for stitching. And that thing is really gorgeous. So we're going to take our pocket guide here, or our pocket pattern, and we're just going to line it up and mark a couple little lines. It's going to tell us where to glue up to on both sides. And you can see with the pocket, our nice burnished back is going to look all fancy. Now we're going to immediately undo that by scraping her up a little bit so that it'll accept glue. I'm not going to glue the bottom at all. We want to keep that open. It makes the wallet open a little bit better, so you can pretty much out of the gate hold a few extra cards. It's like pre-breaking it in almost by just not sewing that bottom seam. Now, there's two ways you can do this. You can glue one side and wait, and then glue the other side, or you can be impatient like me and glue both sides and just kind of balance it on everything, on something. The general gist is we're just going to go through, glue up both sides. I guess it's not lazy, I guess it's efficient. And then I'm going to take a spool of thread, balance it on top, good to go. Now on this one, we're going to glue down to our curve, but we're not going to glue the center part. One of my favorite parts of this piece is like the backside looks so cool. There's so many different little parts. And now you might be asking too, well, why don't I just make the diamond piece and keep this one piece and just fold it over? You can do that if you want to make your own pattern. It just gets really bulky down here. It doesn't lay right, and the cards don't fit right. And you know, I found that going through the extra work of cutting the two extra pieces, skiving down this center part, makes a nice clean fold, and so it lays much more slim. So now we just have to wait for the glue to dry and we'll get it glued in place. So, this is how I like to glue this in. I like to match my curve here with my curve up here, or my curve down here with my edge, and that's all we need. We just want those to line up. And if you did it right, you don't have any extra glue or anything there. Then we fold it, and we make sure that these are even, and that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and just stitch this up. You guys have seen me stitch a lot of seams up. But basically, we already marked our lines, so you're just going to punch through, sew it up, and you're good to go. I'll come back when this is done, and we'll go over the design. And here we go. So we have this cool hand-engraved button that Chuck from Dissonance made us. And you can see here we went with the yellow stitching. Now, as you can see right here, I stitched over this seam. You can make your choice to do that either way. So this is what the back looks like. And then when we open it up, you have similar front and back pockets. Now, if we look at this one, you can see the difference in the stitching. You can go under this seam as well. So that's going to be up to you to decide which look you like better. So there we go, a double envelope wallet. Pattern's going to be in the description. It's up on the website. And all of the materials as well. This is the Crazy Horse leather from Newbury. It's very, very nice. I liked using it. I didn't go too crazy on the edges, but you can see just with a quick sand and some black dye, it looks really nice. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.